External GPU docking stations have surged in popularity, offering a powerful way to boost gaming performance on handhelds, mini PCs and desktops. The ONEXPLAYER ONEXGPU 2 aims to build on its predecessor by upgrading to the AMD Radeon 7800M, promising improved performance and expanded connectivity. But how much of a difference does it really make? And is it the right upgrade for you? Let's take a closer look and find out. The ONEXPLAYER ONEXGPU 2 measures around 9.03 by 6.8 by 1.6 inches and weighs around 1.6 kilos without the power supply, 2.3 kilos with the power supply. The ONEXGPU 2 stands upright to take up less desk space. On the front is a power button, turbo button and a RGB mode cycle button. The turbo button switches between the default 180 watts down to 130 watts. This is useful if you want a quieter fan noise, for example. The RGB button cycles through different light modes that are on the top and bottom areas of the ONEXGPU 2. On the back, from top to bottom, are the power supply connector, a USB-C 4 and OCuLink port for fast data transfer. Next, we have a HDMI and 2 display ports for output up to 3 TVs on monitors. Beside the second display port is a micro SD card reader, and below 2 USB-A ports, finishing off with an Ethernet port. On the left side, below the fan grille, is a removable cover held by magnets, where you can install your M.2 SSD for extra storage. And a brief look at the power supply, as it's a big boy. It measures around 4.7 by 3.7 by 1.1 inches, not including the plug type, or you can use a kettle plug lead instead. It is a 330 watt GaN charger, which not only powers the ONEXGPU 2, but can charge your device up to 65 watts. Having the power supply external to the ONEXGPU does help with the temperatures, but also means something extra to carry if on the move. The ONEXGPU 2 features the AMD Radeon RX 7800M GPU. It has 60 compute units and runs at around 2145 MHz. The GPU has 12 gigs of DDR6 RAM, and the storage slot supports one M.2 PCIe 3.0 SSD. In our fan noise and temperature tests, we run these with Forza Horizon 5 on an external monitor at 4K, with the extreme graphics settings to really push the hardware at 180 watts. We got a highest temperature of 60 degrees C and highest fan noise of 65 decibels. We didn't see that much difference at 130 watts as a note. We could not do a review without some benchmarks. We will skip the usual CPU based benchmarks and concentrate on the ones for GPUs. We will be using the ONEXPLAYER X1 Pro with HX370 CPU, which has an OCuLink port, and the ONEXFLY F1 Pro with HX365 CPU with USB 4 only. We have included benchmark results for internal and external displays, as well as with and without OCuLink connectivity on the X1 Pro, so we can see the differences in performance. We will start with our usual 3D Mark benchmark tests, TimeSpy, Night Raid and Firestrike. In TimeSpy, we see the X1 Pro via OCuLink naturally take the lead, with USB falling behind. The F1 Pro does quite well here, with good results over USB only. On Night Raid, we see more of a mix of results. With the X1 Pro, you can see the difference between internal and external displays, as well as with OCuLink and USB. And the F1 Pro on external display surprisingly takes the top spot in the scores here. For the Firestrike benchmark, the results are a bit closer. The X1 Pro leads again via OCuLink, with a drop in performance via USB only. And the F1 Pro via USB does fairly well across the different tests. It is when we run some games benchmarks we see the advantages of OCuLink over USB only connections. The X1 Pro with OCuLink enjoys a massive boost in performance across the tests. While connected via USB only, we can see for both devices there are very close frames per second, limited by the bandwidth of USB 4. For Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we see the same pattern with the X1 Pro via OCuLink. It has a massive boost in performance compared to USB only. We see similar scores again with USB on their relative tests for both devices. And our final benchmark is for Cyberpunk. We see good scores for the X1 Pro via OCuLink, though there's a noticeable drop at 4K on the external monitor, and for the F1 Pro via USB, we see the expected scores in line with the X1 Pro USB scores. The ONEXGPU 2, as we saw, is great for performance, but we do see some bottlenecks when using USB 4 only. The USB 4 bandwidth is not quite enough to keep up, and we see a large gap in performance compared to OCuLink. On the original ONEXGPU model, the gap was not quite as large as the GPU had less performance, but there was still a bottleneck. We actually got quite similar scores via USB 4 on both devices due to this. However, when connected via OCuLink, we see higher scores than the 7600M GPU. For example, at 4K on Forza Horizon 5, we see around a 30% difference in performance. Lower resolutions will be similar between the two, but if you increase the graphics quality, you would see the gap between them grow rapidly. Benchmarks are all very good, but what about actual real-world gaming? We will take a look at some of the more demanding games. For this, we are using the ONEXPLAYER X1 Pro with an OCuLink connection at 1600p resolution. If you want a solid 60 plus frames per second, then we went with 1600p on the default ray tracing low graphics settings, with high texture quality and AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2.1 set to auto. For a solid 60 plus frames per second, we went with 1600p on the default extreme graphics settings, a nice and easy setup for this game. If you have a higher refresh rate on your display, say 120Hz with the X1 Pro, then we can go with 1600p medium graphics, or you could drop to 1200p and go with high graphics if you prefer. On Avowed is another quick one for 60 plus FPS. We went with 1600p on the default Epic graphics settings, with ray tracing switched on and Nvidia DLSS3 set to quality. We will show some more game footage with settings in our final thoughts up next. The ONEXPLAYER ONEXGPU 2 is a great addition for handhelds, mini or desktop PC owners with some conditions. Let's sum up why. The form factor may appear as very large, but if you compare it to a graphics card, it is mostly larger by depth. You also have the convenience of it standing rather than flat on your desk, which takes up less space. Also consider it's not just a graphics card inside, you have a full docking station set up here, with support for up to 3 external displays, 2 additional USB ports, Ethernet ports and a SSD slot for extra storage. So the extra size compared with the standard GPU makes up for it here. The performance is the most important factor. We see higher performance than the previous generation ONEXGPU. When OCuLink is used, we see increased performance of around 50% from 103 to 153 frames per second on Forza, when compared to the older 7600M. However, if your device does not support OCuLink, then you won't be able to take full advantage of the ONEXGPU's 2 performance, due to the bandwidth limitations of USB 4. In some cases, this can result in a large performance drop. For example, in Forza, at 4K, we recorded 208 FPS with an OCuLink connection, but only 73 FPS over USB 4. If you plan to use USB 4 exclusively, the performance difference compared to the previous model is much smaller, making it a more cost-effective choice. With all this in mind, if you have or are planning to get a device with OCuLink, then the ONEXPLAYER ONEXGPU 2 is an excellent option. You have the fastest possible connection for graphics performance, multiple video outputs, Ethernet and a SSD slot for more storage. This is definitely one to consider. You can learn more and order your ONEXPLAYER ONEXGPU 2 at DROIX. Visit droix.co.uk or droix.net for worldwide shipping. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on the ONEXGPU 2. What game would you play with it if you had one? Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on our next video, and I'll catch you in the next one.